Hello and welcome to The Extra Mile. I'm Linda Boudreaux. Our guest today is Dr. Dan Fisher. Dr. Fisher is the Executive Director of the National Empowerment Center, and he is also a professor of psychiatry at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. So he's come to Louisiana and to Lafayette to share some of his findings and his philosophy with those of us here in Acadiana, and we were very fortunate that he had a little extra time to come and do a show with us. So, Dr. Fisher, thank you so much for coming.
Well, I'm glad to be here. It feels like homecoming to me.
Because you've been here before, and we have met before.
That's
so
right.
It is. It's a wonderful homecoming. It's a good thing to celebrate.
It's great. Yeah. I came here, I came here before Katrina to Confidant, to a conference that you were helping to sponsor.
Right.
And then right after the hurricanes, Katrina and Rita, I came down probably maybe a dozen times.
Yeah, you've been
here and Lake Charles and New Orleans and Baton Rouge all along, and helped train the peers here with Meaningful Minds.
Yeah, exactly.
And a good part of my heart is here.
Oh, I'm so glad. We like it when people from the North love the South.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah.
And for our audience, I'm not sure that they know you already used the word peer. So let's kind of frame this in terms of what we are actually talking about today. What is it that you do?
Well, I wish I could say it in a few words. What do I do?
Or why are you here? What brings you here?
What brings me here really is to inform the public, and tomorrow I'll be informing maybe 115 nurses with a day-long workshop, that people can and do recover from even the most severe forms of what's called mental illness. I don't love that term. Mental health conditions, maybe we might prefer that. And I started this National Empowerment Center along with Judy Chamberlain and Pat Deegan, Laurie Hearn, back about 21 years ago, to give voice to people like myself who've gone through our own recovery. And it's been a passion of mine really ever since I was in my 20s, and I was diagnosed and hospitalized. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and the second hospitalization I was in, I was just telling my daughter about this. I have a 31-year-old daughter, I have a 29-year-old daughter, and my daughters both are always very curious. What happened? What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? How did it happen? How did you get hospitalized? How did you get through it? How did you recover?
What's it like?
What's it like? And I said it was really horrific to be hospitalized, especially the second time.
Was that the worst part of it?
Hospitalization was very difficult, but also it was scary leading up to it, because I didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a book about it, trying to still 40 years later, trying to piece together what happened.
Wow, yeah.
So I often go back and think, what happened that caused me to be hospitalized? What happened? And I share that with my daughters, actually. And in fact, even last night I was going over this because I'm trying to write a book about how did this happen? How did I end up in a psychiatric hospital? And how was I diagnosed with schizophrenia? And how did I recover?
Yeah.
All these, and I've written shorter pieces, and I've spoken, like hundreds of times about it, but it's still kind of a puzzle to me. But I don't feel alone because it's a puzzle to everyone.
Yeah, and those are really the critical questions to ask, don't you think? In terms of really getting to the heart of this and what we need to do and what we can do, because people can recover.
That's
I mean,
right.
You have.
I have.
And I know many people that have.
Yeah, and it's sort of like being a woman in a society that doesn't always recognize women.
Oh, you must have read the latest research on Louisiana and our gender disparity.
Yeah, well, my elder daughter, actually, that's her specialty, is gender disparity issues and empowerment of men and women. She thinks both need to be empowered, but the similarity also is in terms of once you're labeled with a psychiatric label, in order to show that you've recovered, you often have to do 2 to 3 times as much as the ordinary person, just as it is with a woman.
Yeah.
You have to do double
But I want to say something here. You know, there's really not a lot of stigma associated with being a woman. You're considered less than a man, perhaps, but you're not stigmatized the same way you are when you have a
No,
mental
that's
health
true.
diagnosis. When you get a diagnosis of schizophrenia, that's like a big thing you carry around on your back.
It has been, yeah. But I've tried to, instead of seeing it as a stigma, I've tried to explain to people that it actually was a great teacher. That
Tell us about that,
I actually learned a great deal from it. Well, first of all, what led up to my my going into these other realities was I was ironically a biochemist, and I have a PhD in biochemistry, and I was working at the National Institutes of Mental Health on the supposed biochemistry of schizophrenia, when I then started to feel like I was a machine. And that's the unfortunate consequence of thinking through the problem too far. I was a very good biochemist, and my boss was very impressed by my work. And he said, "It's so good, you really get into the problem."
And so you did.
I got completely into it. And I mean, if you think about it, if you're studying, you know, the chemistry of neurotransmitters that play some role in your emotions, you can get trapped, as I did, in the consequence of that means we're all just machines.
Wow, I see where you. Okay, now I see where you're coming
You know,
from.
I mean, and I had a very mechanistic view, and that's in a laboratory. That's very good. You know, you're studying this enzyme very methodically, and that enzyme, and you know, you're losing track then of the human being.
Yeah, which is who
And
you
I
are.
literally started to believe that everyone was a machine, that there were no people left, that there was no evidence of human life. And I didn't know how it happened. You know, when you go into these other realities, it's like a dream. And
But it's real.
but it's real. I believed it. I really believed it. And I tell people now, if I had only said to myself, and I say this to people who are trapped in these dreams now today, just put the word "as if" in, it would make such a difference. So if I had just said to myself, it's as if people have become machines, or it's as if I had become a machine, instead of literally, concretely believing that everyone is a machine.
So when you're in that place, can you remember the word "as if"? And if somebody tells you to use "as if" when you're there,
I could, but no one told me ahead of time. No one said at the time, and nobody knew how
nobody
to.
tells you.
No one knew how to be with me. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
No one knew that I was still there, and
I see.
my particular manifestation of this state of mind was I stopped talking. Absolutely stopped talking, because I didn't feel that it was safe to talk. I thought if everyone's a machine, and I didn't think I was. Still, I didn't think I was.
Okay. Everybody else was,
Everyone
but you
else
weren't.
is a machine. I better not talk about it, or I might become a machine myself, or they might, you know, do something with me, because it was supposed to be a secret. No one was supposed to know that they had become machines, and so I didn't feel I could trust anyone. So I stopped talking for a considerable period of time. The second time, it was about a month I didn't talk. I was hospitalized, and they gave me medication. They put me in, you know, locked rooms. They did everything they could. They shook me. They put smelling salts.
To get you to talk again?
Yeah, and all I could think of was, if someone had been through this themselves, they would know what to say, and they'd know how to be with me. And luckily, there was a corpsman who knew just to be with me. If somebody's in a very distressed state of mind, it's best not to ask too many questions, because they're already probably in a state of fear. But instead, just be with the person. And he was able to just be with me in the most supportive, respectful, humble sort of way. And I felt, maybe I can come back. And gradually he developed a sort of sign language, you know, just little things like, you know, want to drink something, because I wasn't drinking or eating much either. I want to eat something, you know, do you have to go to the bathroom? You know, so we developed our little language.
So he didn't require that you talk in order to communicate with you.
No.
He met you where you were.
That's right. It was a human to human, heart to heart. And actually, fast forward to about 4 years ago, I became a psychiatrist also. I said to myself, one time they locked me in seclusion, I said, this should never happen to anyone. And I'm going to get to be a psychiatrist and create alternatives to psychiatric hospitals.
And that's what you do now, by the
I do
way.
that.
So
I do
that's
that
why,
now.
and that's why Dan is here today.
I do that. I do. Trying to retrain staff, trying to create new settings for people, supports in the community, work with families, work with peers, anything that I can do to try to help support people without them having to be hospitalized. But there's been a big missing ingredient, and that is that even though we have peers that are very committed, people lived experience of recovery themselves who want to help other people, and also staff that want to help other people, there hasn't been just what I was looking for, and that was like a training for people just to be with people. And
Yeah.
who would best train people? Who do you think would be the best trainers?
Someone that's been there.
Exactly. Because if you haven't been there, even the most good-hearted person doesn't really know that it's better not to talk at times.
You can't know what you don't know.
You can't
just
know what
can't.
you don't know. And just like in substance abuse, people, been through their own recovery from substances, alcohol, drugs. They're often the best counselors.
Right.
Peers who've been through their own recovery can be excellent also. But peers need, and I'm learning it myself, need to have further training about how to help somebody, especially through a crisis, because there just isn't that training really.
No, there isn't.
Psychiatrist, I didn't get it as a psychiatrist. And I was in a very good program, this Harvard teaching hospital. It was before medication was even, pushed so heavily. And they were good about therapy, but they didn't know how to reach people in another reality.
Place, yeah.
And in fact, I did know somewhat because I'd been there, and instinctively, I would just sit with people. Sometimes if somebody was on the floor, you just sit with them on the floor. You go right to where they are, just like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I and about 20 other people lived experience over the last 4 years. We developed a new program.
And it's what?
It's called Emotional CPR. Emotional CPR. So just like CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, helps somebody's physical heart when it's stopped. And you learn how to, actually it's mainly compress their chest
Right.
in rhythm with the way you hope their heart will start again. In the same fashion, this emotional CPR is to restart somebody's emotional heart when they've had a heartbreak or a loss of heart or they're heavy-hearted. I mean, we have a lot of expressions
lots of words
about
yeah.
our heart.
Yeah.
And our heart is sort of the center of our, much the center of our being. I mean, it's
physical and emotional.
yeah, physical
Yeah.
and emotional. And so we're training and learning and training and learning, and we've now done trainings for over 600 people, and they're small settings, about 15 to 20 people at a time, and all over the country. We haven't done it yet in Louisiana.
Well, we need you to come do that.
Well, I'm eager to come back and do some training in emotional CPR.
But what are the components of it? I mean, what is it really all
I'm
about?
glad you asked.
You're welcome.
You're fun to have an interview with.
'Cause I love this stuff.
That's
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, I
That's
do.
clear. Well, the C in emotional CPR, C is for connecting. And nothing begins without a human connection.
right.
I mean, like when I saw you and I hadn't seen you for years,
Yeah.
we started connecting. How we knew
reconnecting.
each other. Reconnecting.
Yeah.
We're reconnecting, yeah. And you growing up in Baltimore, I'd grown up in
Yeah.
Baltimore, and I had a school tie on.
Yeah.
So,
Old neighborhoods.
yeah,
exactly.
So those connecting, and a lot of that connecting is nonverbal. A lot of it is, especially when somebody's in a state of distress. I don't know if you saw the movie Hitch.
I didn't.
It's really it's a fun movie. It's probably more a guy movie, but whatever. It's Will Smith is giving advice to a younger guy about how to get a date.
I think I want to see it.
You know?
I do. I think I do. Yeah.
So he's explaining to this guy, look, it isn't what you say, it's how you say it. And he said, his estimate in the movie was like 80% of communication is nonverbal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'd say definitely true, but when somebody's in distress, it may be 90 or 95%. The way you say something, the tone of voice, the way you look at somebody, your willingness and interest in them as a person. Probably the most dramatic example was the first moment I was hospitalized at this, it was a Navy hospital, of all things, ironic. I was in the public health service. It was 1970, and it was right across the street from where I was working, which was also kind of ironic. It was a Bethesda Naval Hospital in Bethesda, obviously. And I was, stopped talking, stopped going to work, and just wasn't interacting. So my psychiatrist said, well, he has to go to the Navy hospital. My friends dropped me off, and they were nervous about military authorities.
Yeah, I can see
they were
that.
hippies. I was a hippie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you can tell.
It was a day.
So they just dropped me there. I had no identification.
Ooh.
I mean, they didn't drop me like.
I know,
boom.
but they just
took
took
me
you and
there,
left you. Yeah.
and they took off, and I was just sitting there,
Not talking.
not talking, with no identification.
Oh, welcome home.
And they come up with, they come up, like higher ranking people first. They'd come up and they'd have, questions. What's your name? What's your, address? What's your security number? Why are you here? And I'm like, where am I? Why am I here?
Oh, yeah.
Just to myself.
How scary.
It's not
How
safe.
scary,
Not
yeah.
safe, So they put me in a wheelchair because I wasn't talking. I mean, I wasn't walking either. And I was just stationary. And they sort of shoved me over aside. And this young man, a corpsman, probably the lowest ranking, and it's just so consistent that people of least status are often the most capable of reaching somebody. This is an upside-down world we're living in. We train people out of the capacity to have empathy and to connect on a human level.
Because we put them up here.
And they put themselves up there.
And they don't mind.
They like being up there.
I guess, it's
I
fair.
could be up there, but I never felt good about being up there. I still don't feel good about it. And I just keep reminding myself, I never liked it when other people treated me like they were up here and I was down here anyway.
So you have to keep yourself right where.
Humble,
Yeah.
humble, and recognize that we're all learning all the time, and from
really,
each other.
And really, in the mental health arena, there's still so much we don't know.
Oh,
My God, there's so much we don't know.
More and more. The more we learn, the more we learn we don't know. So this guy came up and he just looked at me. And my eyes were open. I was still looking around. And he just looked at me. And I don't know how long it was. It was a considerable period of time. I could tell by his expression, his face, and his interest that he actually was curious about, me.
Yeah.
Not my name, rank, and serial number. Me. Actually me. And he said something like, I can tell you're in distress.
Wow. What a great thing to say.
It was wonderful. He wasn't like, what are you thinking, or, what are you feeling, or, tell me, how you slept, or, no, I can just tell you're in distress right now at this moment. And then he just looked at me a long time. He said, my name's Rick. My name's Rick. And he had these just open expression of, like a child. I mean, he was probably 18, 19 years old. And then he said, if you can hear me, just nod.
He was just naturally gifted, wasn't he?
Well, I think everyone is.
Yeah.
I think everyone, if they can get back in touch with their authentic self, their authentic being, everyone has it in them.
People need to be reminded of that, and you know, we need to honor that in people.
Yeah.
We really do.
I know, and really those are the people that should be helping people the most. And that's what we try to cultivate in emotional CPR.
Okay, so we've got connection. C. Did I say? Okay, let's go to that big P.
Well, we cheated a little bit on the P. It's actually empower.
Okay.
We could say power.
But that has a different kind of.
I know, power sort of sounds like power over or powerful. Or whereas empower is so that the person can re-experience, because they've often lost their sense of their own power. And that, a lot of that comes from how you are with someone. What I was just saying, the more that you can share, especially what's happening right at the moment, the more it helps the person in distress feel like, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. And that's the first step to re-experiencing your power, is feeling you're not alone. And even if, you know, like if you can feel what someone's going through, and we have a website people could go and they could look at it. It's called emotional-cpr.org.
Okay, we'll put that up on the screen so people can find it.
And we have some role plays. We do a lot of role playing. So we demonstrate through role play how to connect with somebody and how to feel, you know, the mutual empowerment. And
I'm going to speed you up a little bit because we have 3 minutes left. So I just got the signals. So, but it's very important that we do help people to become re-empowered.
Yeah, and this is really, it's public health approach.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and by doing public health, I believe that recovery is everyone's business. Recovery is not just the business of people who have been diagnosed. Recovery is the business of, you know, the grocer.
I totally agree.
It's the person at the toll booth. Every interaction, and I think you've got a much, in a way, more of a natural inclination for it here in Louisiana than in some of our northern states.
And that would be because why?
Hospitality. You really do. You really live hospitality. I mean, we were driving out. Pat and I were driving out from the parking lot, and the woman said, "Now you have a good weekend." Of course, it's Thursday, I said to her.
So I guess just to kind of sum it up and kind of bring just a couple of things back together, so a few things that you said I think are really important for people to hear is when you're working with somebody in crisis, be in the moment.
In the moment.
Because past and future just really don't matter at all, do they?
Not at all.
And the other thing that you said I think is so important, and I kind of want to drive it home, is it's about our own personal and interpersonal humanity. Is that fair to say?
Crucial, yeah, to be in touch with that for yourself. Because as soon as you lose touch with that, then you lose touch with the person. You lose touch with, reaching their humanity. And you also give a sort of silent signal to them, not safe to be human here.
Okay, and that's the signal that we want to avoid. So this is heart-to-heart work in a very real way.
We call it heart-to-heart resuscitation.
Okay, and is that the R is for the resuscitation, and the
it's
CPR?
actually for revitalization.
What a great word! What a great word!
Bring life back.
So that we can all kind of enjoy it again.
That's right.
And again, in the last kind of wrapping up, is recovery possible for everyone?
Oh yeah.
For everyone.
It's possible for everyone, and it's everybody's job.
Okay.
And I only wish, and maybe another time I could talk about what they're doing in Finland, because they have an alternative approach called open dialogue, which has the highest recovery rate in the world, and they use very little medication. I was just there 3 weeks ago, and I went out with their teams, and they're doing the most respectful, most humble work anywhere I've ever seen.
And we could do that here. And we can do it in small, in little bits and let it grow.
That's right.
Dan, I want to thank you so much for coming
You're welcome.
and joining us, and what you're going to be doing with our UL nurses, and just what you have done and what you continue to do for our community here in Lafayette and in Louisiana.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Linda.
And thank you for watching The Extra Mile.